a time. There's no need to rush. I'm finding myself going through all this stuff. I'm looking for hope, I'm looking for truth, so I can be a better me for you, one day at a time, one day at a time.
Yeah, thanks for coming back on, and this will be the second episode in the One Day at a Time series that I'm doing to help people that are going through stuff, because you've been through some stuff, to say the least.
Yeah, I've been through some stuff.
Yeah. So last time I think I had you on the show was when you were passing through Nashville.
Yeah,
And
that was fun.
That was super fun. We chatted on the pontoon.
I want a little place like that has a living room outside on a dock.
Yeah. It's definitely the way to go for sure. And so that was July of 2020, or maybe June, somewhere's in there.
July 2020.
Yeah. Okay. Crazy. Yeah, you just finished your 250 days of fishing. You were just starting a new one, and it's been quite a journey since then.
Yeah, it has totally been.
Yeah. So, pretty much was it pretty much soon after that you had the major health issue? Or
yeah, my spinal cord stimulator busted. Maybe I don't know, 3 or 4 months after that, or something like that. Yeah. In the late fall, early winter of 2020, and that was a big struggle. Like,
I just obviously I don't know, just from seeing some of the posts and stuff, what you went through with all that, but it looked excruciating.
Yeah. So I don't know. Are we starting?
Yeah. No.
All right. I didn't want to. I don't know if we're just chatting, but
no,
I can go into it a little bit. So I have like a damaged thoracic nerve in my spine, and it causes really severe intractable pain, and the narcotics and things like that don't really touch it. It's just the kind of pain that just sort of grinds you into dust. And so I have it's like called a pulse generator. It's like a little battery about the size of a hockey puck, about like that. And it's in my hip, and it has wires that run to my spine and then up my spinal cord. The pulse generator broke in, I think it was late September, early October. And I'd had it in there for a while, and it was working great, and it just busted. And so that went to just no pain management whatsoever. And I was supposed to go in. I went in for surgery. They were just going to swap out the pulse generator for a newfangled pulse generator. And it was only supposed to be like maybe a couple hours surgery, and maybe 2 or 3 weeks downtime because you just have an incision in your hip or whatever. Well, I woke up 8 hours later, and they had gone in there, and the leads had swollen that connected to the old one, so they couldn't get the leads in the new one. So they had to rip everything out, redo the whole thing, which meant, I forget how long I was. I think 8 weeks without being able to like bend over, put my arms over my head, lift anything. I mean, and really the pain management took like a whole month, because they have to wait for that thing to scar into place before they can really program it. And I didn't have any pain meds, nothing touched it. So it was really awful. It really dragged me down into some very dark places, because when I first had this done, I was a pain patient. I was on like hospice doses of fentanyl, and it wasn't the most effective, but it was something that, and so when you go through this and you have absolutely nothing, it was so very difficult. And
Mm.
for me mentally, just to be in that, to be alone, trying to take care of myself, trying to to do that week after week, was very difficult for me. So
Yeah.
and in a way, it really, conversely, it strengthened my faith because that's all I had. I couldn't really leave the house. I couldn't go out and do stuff. I really couldn't drive anywhere. And, um, being by myself, I couldn't see my family for the holidays or anything like that. And it really, I sought God because that's all I had. And just really developed a better relationship with God over that. So, and
Mm.
that has really helped me in other things I've gone through in life. But
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you had also just recently, like, uh, before that happened, quit your job to put
yes. Well,
everything,
yeah, that
or
was
was that kind of
after.
in the process?
So I had been thinking about quitting my job and sort of taking this leap. But I mean, that's a big thing, right? To just take your life and upend it and go in a whole different direction and go from like an income and saving money and all that to not not
Yeah.
having an income. But what I experienced going through that time of after the surgery, I mean, I didn't know if I was going to fish again. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do that. I didn't The future was really unknown. And I just realized, like, this changed in a heartbeat for me. I went from, like, you forget when you have this kind of pain management, you forget what it's basically tricks your brain, and you forget what it is your body's actually feeling, because your brain's getting tricked the whole time. And when that stopped working, it was a big wake up call of, like, wow, this is still, it isn't just in my mind. This is still happening.
Yeah.
And I just realized, like, what am I waiting for? Am I gonna try and retire when I'm 65, and then I'm gonna compete against all these 18 and 20-year-olds when I'm 65 in a kayak physically? It's already hard at 51, but I thought, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee I could do this next year. There was no guarantee I could do it the next week. And I just thought, if I can do this and just take this leap, I want to do this, because I don't want to go later in my life and say, I wish I would have just taken a year and tried this and just seen what I could do and see what could happen. Um, yeah, so and I felt like God had called me to do that, and that's sort of a difficult thing to explain, but I just felt like that was my path. And so I put in my notice and and left my career of like 15 years and all that security, and went and hit the kayak trail as really diving headfirst into the national tournament scene, not really an experienced angler as far as bass fishing is concerned, and unsure if, like, physically I could even do it. I couldn't even lift my own boat when I started. So I had to,
Wow.
like, find kayak ramp, a ramp that I could back my trailer in and try and float it off, but I wasn't allowed to lift anything over a certain amount of pounds, so I couldn't lift my own boat. So everything was very restricted for the first, it really took till about June when I was really sort of physically, things are cementing together. But when I started, I didn't know what was going to happen and what things were going to be like. And other things happened in my life and turned everything upside down. And it was a really challenging year. But that was really my impetus to just take a leap of faith into the unknown and see what I could do, and just follow God and just keep going. And and it ended up being pretty amazing. I did way better than I ever thought I would. And, I don't know if I'll ever be able to repeat that. I don't, who knows? But
Well, describing your journey, it's definitely the epitome of having to take things one day at a time. Because,
there's been a lot of times where a day feels like a year. And I'm serious. There's times where, I have a friend who lets me journal to them, which is very kind. Because sometimes, and I feel sort of bad in a way because my journal entries are just like all this stuff I'm going through and emotionally how difficult it is and how I'm trying to navigate all these different things. And I feel like I'm writing like everything that happened in like a week or 2 weeks. And it's really only been 24 hours.
wow.
And it's just like, why do I feel like everything's so accelerated and a week feels like a year? It's, when things are so difficult and so stressful and you're in territory that you don't know what to do. You don't know how to handle it. You don't know how to come at it. You don't know anything. You're just making your way. And it really becomes sort of that moment to moment, hour to hour, one day at a time kind of thing, because that's all you really have. You don't
Right.
know how something's going to turn out.
It'd
And
be nice if we did.
a little signpost along the way, but
Yeah.
um I don't know, and that's about for me. It's all been about my faith and my faith in God, and um, things were really tough for me this year, and in a lot of different ways. And there were times where, I didn't know where I was gonna stay sometimes, and I would pray to God, like, tell me where I'm going next. Like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do about this or that? And where am I going? And there were times where I was like, okay, God be like, you need to go to Texas, and I'm up in northern Missouri, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go. And I just it sounds crazy, I guess, but that's really what I did. And I just talk to God and just see where I'm supposed to go. And I'm just trying to be obedient and follow that. And it's taken me in places where I understand now, like, there's not a lot of coincidence in life.
Right.
And things happen for a reason, but those difficult things are really the hardest part to get through,
Mm.
for sure.
What, going back just a little bit, what was it like when you first started getting into the kayak after going through what you went through, like those very first times to go out there?
I was scared.
Was
I
it
was
scary?
really scared. Um, yeah, because I didn't know if I was gonna be able, like, I hadn't been able to cast even a pole when I left, like barely been able to cast a pole. I wasn't supposed to raise my arms over my head, and kayaking, a lot of the tournaments I do, you can't have a motor, so it's all your physical power, and you got to sit in a chair, and if you have back issues, that can be pretty challenging, and I couldn't twist, so it was just a lot. I had a lot of fear, and I would say, like, if there's been one theme in my life that has gotten me through is having courage, and that was early in my life. I struggled in my 20s. I um, had some difficult times, and I got into drugs and alcohol and way too much, and really struggle. I'm the kind of person that I had to get sober at 21. Most people are just getting started, and I was like already done. But I really struggled with that, and I just couldn't stay sober at all. And I went out and I lived out in the Mojave Desert for about a month and a half because I went out there feeling like I had lost something in my life, but I didn't know what it was. And so I'd go out every day and I'd hike around, and I try and fish for striper or whatever. Mostly just hiking around, looking at rocks and asking, like, God, like, what is it I'm missing?
Mhm.
But I feel like I'm missing something and I could not figure it out. And what is it that I need to try and to get past this in my life? And I had this I had this dream and I had this dream and I was driving, it's a little biblical, but I was driving a VW Bug in this dream. That's how I can remember. This happened in my 20s, and the the VW Bug, like was at night going through a swamp, and I swerved and went off the road into the swamp, and the car was upside down, and I could see through the window in the water to the other side, and I'm in the water, and I saw Jesus swimming towards me, and he's like locking his eyes with me, and I didn't want to break that gaze. I like he could look into my soul, and he dove underwater and I dove under to find him and I couldn't. And I came up and it was like Groundhog Day, like an instant replay. Jesus swimming, looking in my eyes, dived down, and I dived down. And anyways, the third time that happened, and on the third time I dove down, and all of a sudden I'm in this car and I'm upright. And right then I woke up and I had this message inside of me that it was courage, that I was missing courage this whole time. And that has helped me through all these health issues, like when I got sick and this stuff got in my central nervous system. I had paralysis in my leg for a long time and pain and all kinds of different things. And it has always been courage to try to keep going, courage to learn to walk again, courage to not give up, try to go back to school, courage to try redefine myself and try a whole new career because I couldn't do X, Y, and Z anymore. When I couldn't walk anymore and I couldn't drive a car, I went and got a sidecar motorcycle because I could operate it with my hands and didn't have to put my feet down and have it fall over. Like that was my crazy transportation for a long time. And
Wow.
but courage has really been the key component for my life. And with all these struggles and the stuff that I've gone through this last year, and to take this leap of faith and drive all over America and do these tournaments and go out in the worst conditions and compete against the top anglers in kayak fishing has all been about courage, and going out even when you're afraid. Courage doesn't mean lack of fear. I still feel afraid every time I go to a tournament. It takes me like a day to like get out on the water at a boat ramp because I get all nervous and scared about going out on the water and what's going to happen. And everything's so new and different because I go to so many different new lakes. I don't always know what I'm doing. And I always have that fear. The fear never goes away, but it's what you do with it. It's what you do with that fear, that you still can be afraid and still have courage and go after something and take those small steps and just put one foot in front of the other and keep taking another small step. That's where courage gets you, whether you're afraid or whatever you're going through. So,
wow,
there's
such
my
yeah, that's awesome. It's such a powerful story and a powerful message that I think a lot of people can learn something from. I took a leap of faith and decided to go as a boater last year with the LBAA, and my first tournament, I wanted to I'd just gotten this new boat. I had issues with it, and I'm like, oh nope, I can't fish. Like I was looking for any excuse not to have to go out there and fish because Ray Hubbard, it's I heard a lot of stories going into it that it's if it's any kind of wind out there, it gets really rough. Uh, One angler I know, she told a story about she broke some stuff on her boat because there was like 6-foot waves, and so I was pretty scared.
Yeah.
But I just had to find that courage and go out there, and it and it ended up being, I think, that's how we grow. We put ourselves in these challenging situations and don't let that fear consume us. Like try to fight past it, and we get better.
You know what I mean? You do despite your fear.
Right.
And it's I have lots of fear about all kinds of things. It's just, I even have fear because I've been struggling a lot this year with just some personal issues, some things emotionally that have been very difficult, toxic people to deal with and stuff like that. And it really was difficult for me emotionally, and I would get afraid to be around people because I mean these are all people that I loved and cared about, but I was afraid to be around them because of, you know, things were getting said that weren't true, or I was afraid that they would judge me, or I was afraid like I was going to lose it and I'd start crying and everybody, think I was a mess, so there were times like I really isolated by the end of the year because I'd have this fear about being and being around people and getting judged and all these things, and I still am coping with that. I'm still dealing with that. This is like this cabin I'm staying with Carolyn and Krista Hibbs, who are amazing mother and daughter angler team. And it's one of the few times I've stayed with anybody for a while because I've just been so scared to be vulnerable around people and let them see like how I struggle with things sometimes. I don't want always, I try and be transparent about the struggles I'm in, but it's another deal if I'm like really struggling. How bad do I want somebody to see people to see that? And I don't want to necessarily put them through that. So, it's my own personal struggles and my own demons that I battle, and it's hard to allow yourself to be vulnerable in that, and trust that people are who they say they are. That has been my biggest hurdle. Because I have a big heart and I'm completely naive, and I unfortunately make friends with all the wrong people sometimes. I don't find out till later.
Right.
So then I'm like, oh, how do I 10-foot pole this? But you can't just isolate either. So,
right.
And I think part of that, if you're going through, whether it's even physical stuff, or if you're having a physical illness that you get hypersensitive about it because you think people can see how you feel or people can see something, and it's hard to be in that place and be vulnerable with that. And I think the same if you're dealing with trying to move through. For me, it was really a toxic relationship, and trying to learn about, this was what was happening to me. That was the other person, to not take it on myself that it had anything really to do with me. It was really all their problems. But I'm one of those sensitive people, and that really sort of was very difficult for me to handle and try and be vulnerable in that. And I think it's the same thing for whether it's dealing emotionally or anything like that or physical, that it's a lot of the same challenges that we have to take into. It's just very hard. It's harder when it's something that's more hidden, like a hidden illness where it's easy if somebody looks at you and sees you have a broken leg,
Right.
But if you have something that's hidden, like you have, for me, it's been, a neurological thing, and dealing with PTSD, and these are things that people don't see and they don't necessarily understand, and so they may not understand, like, if I'm having a struggle with flashbacks or whatever, like it's hard for me to be in that situation with other people, and people can be sort of judgy about that because they don't see what's going on the inside with somebody who has a hidden illness like that. And if I could say anything to anybody that's out there listening to this, that there's a lot more people out there than about that are struggling with all the exact same things you're struggling with. And it's just that we tend to be super quiet about it and not tell anybody, and we hide it and everything else. And I think it helps to know that you're not by yourself in that there are other people that are going through that, and that it's a struggle, but you can get through the other side of it. and be successful and actually have a happy life, amazingly.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, that's why I wanted to do this series is because I've seen a pattern of that a lot of people think they're alone and there's not enough people out there like you that are willing to talk about this stuff. And so I really appreciate you having the courage to share your story. And like I said, I do think it's going to be very inspirational to for sure at least one person out there. But I bet you
I
it's
know.
gonna
I hope
it's
so. I
gonna.
hope it does, because I think that's been the hard thing for me is there aren't people talking about it. For me, like, dealing with really a narcissist, I had to go online and start learning, like, wow, this is, I'm like watching things like this is exactly what's happening. Like, because no one will talk about it. No one will talk about all these things that go on with these kind of things, and how to get through it. Everything's always so hidden. Like, there's some big shame in it that you fell for that, or you got, that happened to you. And really, there is no shame in that. It's not, you're carrying a burden that isn't yours.
Mhm.
You're dealing with a lot of messed up stuff, and you can you can get through that. It's just, it's so isolating, and people feel so ashamed that they're going through, whether it's a PTSD or a pain issue, or trying to get over alcoholism or drugs or anything else. There are so many other people out there that are struggling every
Mhm.
day, just like you are. It's just a lot of us get too scared to say anything about it. It's like this giant silence out there,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of hope. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, I just appreciate you sharing all of that. Like I said, I do think it's going to help some people out there. So
I
keep
don't.
on doing what you're doing because
Okay.
you're an inspiration to me. I love
Uh,
following you online and
well,
seeing
we
all the
inspire each other, and one of
yeah,
these days I'm going to get to visit the Lance studio
yes,
on our travel.
absolutely. We will make that happen.
I might
And
be able to do a LBAA. I don't know. We'll see how that all works out.
yeah, I wanted to talk about that because yeah, I saw you. You're signed up, so if you can
I did
make
sign
any
up.
of the tournaments, that's
I don't.
awesome.
I've never. Okay. Never is not the right word. I fished on the back of a bass boat once in South Dakota for like 2.5 hours.
Okay.
So I know nothing about really co-angling in a tournament, or fishing from back there, or even like what you do. Like, what do you, I don't know. What, it's like a whole like foreign universe to me. I know what to do
Yeah.
about my kayak, doing my own thing, but I have no clue about bass boat tournaments, or occasionally
Yeah.
I like, have to deal with them because they're like trying to muscle in on my spot in a
Right.
tournament. We both did tournaments, and I'm like, hey, buddy, you're on the other side of my bush over here, like, are you cool? And he's like, oh, we're fine, ma'am. 10 feet away from me.
Hey,
Why?
but you can get to the spots that they can't get to, so
Sometimes.
that's
Depends where the
something.
fish is, Angie.
That's true. Well, I'm here to help you if you ever have any questions about that. I did fish a couple years as a co-angler, so not with the
I
LBA,
need some
but
advice. Like I don't
yeah,
even know, like, how do you figure out what poles to bring, and where do you put them, and where do you put the tackle, and
yep,
you know
yeah. When I first
what happens if
started,
you have to go to the bathroom and the boater doesn't? Like,
yeah,
what happens? These are big questions I have.
yes, I'd be happy to answer all those for you. I know my first tournament, I showed up with 3 rods, and they're like, "Is that all you? 3 rods?" I'm like, "Yeah, I thought I was doing good, you know." So apparently, like 6 is probably a better number to have with you. But anyways, and I also want to say I love your setup that you have now. that you've been working on the garage and getting all that set up. That is so
Oh,
awesome.
thank you.
I want
That
to
was
come
a
see
lot
it
of
in
work.
person.
Yeah,
Yeah, it looked
you
like
can
it.
come over and visit.
It's
That
not
was
that far. So,
no, it isn't. It isn't.
yeah.
Anytime. Yeah, so that was sort of like also a big leap of faith for me, is just like, I'm gonna make a dream fish cave garage thing for myself. And it's, so I ordered like all these different cabinets and shelving and bench, but everything had to be assembled and installed, and then I had to custom make put up all the pro slat. And I learned a lot in doing that, and putting all that together, and it took way longer than I ever thought it would. But and then I modified. Uh I made my own live scope
Oh,
mount,
yeah, that looks awesome.
and all the stuff that, like, it was sort of like, okay, I got my workshop built. Now I'm gonna like go and figure out how to make my own bracket and arm for live scope, and do all the wiring myself, and all the stuff that I have never done. And that took way longer, and I made lots of mistakes, but it was a good learning process, and it feels good to be able to just like, again, just take a leap and try something, and try figuring it out, and try doing it yourself. And I know today a guy was like, so did you go to this such and such shop to get this done? I'm like, no, I did it myself. He goes, I paid $800 to get that done. I'm like, I'll charge
There
you
you go.
six. you know,
Nice.
but
Yeah,
it would
so cool.
it would have been it was fun though. And for me, that was just part of like reestablishing myself for this year. And because I pretty much lived on the road so hard last year. I did, like, Google said I drove like 2.5 times around the world.
Oh my gosh.
I put a lot of miles on it, and really, really didn't have. I was like roaming the earth, and by the end of it, it was very hard for me. Um, and I just finally feel like I have like a little place to call my own, even though I'm probably not there a lot. But
It's nice to
Uh,
have.
I've got a little Airbnb that I like to stay at in Texas. It's on this deer ranch, so that's sort of like my home away from home. And at some point, I'll probably have like a little place in Texas and my place in Tennessee. And I'm sort of thinking like every like 800 to 1,000 miles that I need. That's sort of like my limit. Like a 10-hour drive. It'd be nice to
Yeah.
have if I'm gonna be doing this long term. We'll see. we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see what God has planned for me. But so far, it's my little place in Tennessee, and I've got my place in Utah, and then hanging out at the deer ranch out in the middle of nowhere in Texas.
Nice.
I just like it because it's like out. It's so out in the middle of nowhere. I don't have to worry about anything, and it feels
Yeah.
safe out there. So. And it's really
Okay.
cool, like black sky, like, or dark sky, so you can see like all the stars. And there's all these, like, the guy has like these special deer in there, like apex deer, and all these different red stags. So it's stuff that you don't normally see, with these huge antlers just flying around out there. So I like it. It's like a little zoo.
Yeah. Nice. That's awesome. Well, and I also want to say congratulations on that third place, Lake Champlain,
Oh,
Hobie POS. That is so awesome. We're
that
all
was
so
pretty
proud.
crazy. I don't even know what happened
Like,
there.
yes.
I don't know. I don't know.
So,
And this year, I have like this year is very different for me. Last year was so entirely focused on tournaments, and this year I want to have a little bit of downtime, even though I still have a stacked schedule. um it just feels different. Like, God has had me doing some different things already, and so I'm gonna be doing tournaments, but I really want to just spend time seeing people and exploring and meeting new folks and doing some different things, just to vary it up, so I don't feel by the time October rolls around, that I'm just scraping the bottom of the barrel.
mhm.
So I don't know. We'll see. It's gonna be a busy year, and I don't have any high expectations. I'm really just, I want to just be happy
Yeah.
and, you know, and be happy and fish. And if I do great in a tournament, that's great. But it's not going to kill me if I don't. And I just want to go out there. Everybody says you can't listen to, like, I literally have, like, I made a little mount for a speaker in my kayak, and um I've been listening, I just like turn on music and I start singing along and I start fishing, and I'm just trying to, that's all I'm trying to do is just go out and fish and have fun and enjoy being in some of the most beautiful scenery and the beautiful legendary fisheries that we have around America, and just have fun. And if I end up doing great, that's even better. But I don't have those expectations of how I'm going to perform. My goal is really quality of the experience over whatever number. Nobody ever remembers if you get 7th or 19th or what. No one ever remembers that. Um, like, I still want to try and get in the Angler a Year races, and I still want to try and qualify for different championships. But my focus is so much on trying to be present in the moment and just enjoy the moment I have while I have it. So yeah,
Love
so a
that.
lot of singing, a lot of playing music, and all these people are like, "You can't do that." Well, I mean, I did that today and caught a lot of bass. So
Nice.
we'll see how that translates to a tournament, right?
Yeah, that's
So
awesome. I
far,
love
most
it.
tournaments have been frozen. I mean, Lake Fork was an ice storm, and it was beautiful today here at Toledo Bend. It was like almost 70 degrees, but it's going to drop like 20 or 30 degrees on tournament morning and have like
Ah,
a
of
15,
course.
20-mile-an-hour wind and whatever. I'm just going to go hang out and crank some tunes, and I don't
That's
know.
awesome.
I don't know. Maybe that's not like the winner mentality, but I'm just not going to do that. I don't feel the need to prove myself in that way. I really just want to have fun and enjoy the experience. And if I do great, that's awesome. And I think I can do great and still have fun, right? I'm not going to stress
Huh.
myself out over it. And life's
And
short, and
you know
there's
that
other things that are important.
that mentality may really help because if somebody's so like serious and focused on catching a lot of fish, sometimes I think that kind of works against you. So I think sometimes it helps to loosen up and just be in the moment and be having the best time that you can.
Yeah. And I sort of, I would say my transition to that started in the Tournament Champions on You Follow on day 3. I forgot my battery at the Airbnb, and it had been cold, and I knew that the fish were going to go deep off some brush piles and things like that, and that's what I was going to fish. So I spent all this time pre-fishing, marking brush piles, and I was like, I'm going to go fish those things. And I showed up at the ramp without my battery. So I had no electronics, nothing that I had marked that I could, and I couldn't remember where all of them were.
Right.
And so I just went out and fished by touch. I just would cast out and just drag stuff around till I hit something, and then just slow down. And I beat everybody on that day with no electronics, just dragging
Wow.
things around till I found brush piles by touch. And and I just focused on having fun and singing songs, and I didn't, I knew I wasn't going to cash a check, but gosh, I beat everybody that day at one of the top limits of the thing, and I thought, I'm on to something here. Like,
Yeah.
if I could do that with no electronics, because I'm just out having fun, talking to God and just chucking things in the wind and just seeing what happens, like, why am I not just doing that everywhere? Why do I need to have like this super stressed out strategy? Like, I'm just, yeah. My friend would
Yeah.
say, like, everybody's like, where are you gonna go fish? My friend goes, if you ever want to know where Kate's gonna fish, basically find out where she's staying, find the nearest boat ramp, and that's about it.
Nice.
So it
Love
worked.
it. Yeah, that's great. So cool. Well, I do hope that we get to meet up at some point this year, and
We'll
I hope I
definitely
get to
do
see.
that.
Yeah, and I hope I get to see you at least one of the LBA events, if not
Yes.
a couple. It'd be great.
To be
And
starting my new career into the glitter boat world.
into
There
what?
is into the glitter boat world. I mean,
Yeah,
there is room in my garage.
yeah.
There's room
I
for a
saw
boat.
you were at a boat dealership, but getting a little tempted a while back. So
Yeah. I could like going fast.
it is
But
nice.
it's a whole nother world. I've got no experience doing it from a boat so like that, like a bass boat. So we'll see.
Yeah, you'd be able to figure it out pretty quick.
That's a whole different. I gotta like cast from above the water.
Yeah,
That's a whole
right.
different lifestyle.
So much easier.
Is it really?
I
But you
mean, I
gotta
think so.
stand up and stuff. That seems really hard. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks again. I know that said live, but it's gonna go out probably not this Sunday, but the following Sunday.
Sounds good.
So we'll put it out. We'll put out the audio version and the video on YouTube, and
I
uh,
appreciate it. Thanks, Angie, for the chance
yeah,
to talk with you. And
glad
I'm
we were able to make it
you
happen.
can always give me a ring, Angie.
Okay,
Chit
I
chat,
will.
lift each other up.
Yep, that's
Oh.
great. Thank you. We'll do that.